Hey everyone, welcome to Happenstance, a reading series conceptualized and created by myself and Parker K of Pumice Raft. We're here today at the Baldwin Steps by Cason off of Spadina Road. And so these steps connect two segments of Spadina Road, and we're right on the edge of a cliff that used to be the former site of Lake Iroquois. And when I was doing a little research about the history of the area as well, I found out that in the 60s, the Spadina Expressway development project was going to clear these steps away. But luckily, that project was dissolved, and so we still have these steps here now. And we're really excited to be back and to be doing one of these series again. And I'm really excited to bring in our featured reader today, Jean-Marc Ah-Sen. Jean-Marc is the author of 𝗕𝗵𝗏𝗬𝗀 in the beggarly style of imitation, and he's one of the participants of the collaborative novel Disintegration in 4 parts. And I find Jean-Marc's writing really, it plays with form in a way that I think is really exciting, and takes a lot of formal risks that we don't always see in Canadian literature, so I'm really excited that he's here to read with us today. So without further ado, here's Jean-Marc Ah-Sen.
Thanks, Cason, and thank you, Parker, for having me. More than thrilled to be reading from a novel that I'm working on. It's the opening chapter. It goes like this. 𝗕𝗏𝗬𝗀𝗬𝗀 and I were having a rush dinner at Bamboo to work out details on a new music project we wanted to kick off together, a garage group that was going to be called 𝗕𝗲𝗱𝗄𝗍𝗍. I had the 𝗕𝗲𝗄𝗍𝗍𝗍, as I recall, and I think 𝗕𝗏 had some flavorless chicken dish that he instantly regretted ordering. None of the logistics got hammered out about how we would go about putting the group together exactly. There was mostly talk about the ecstasy he had scored from a chemistry student that had synthesized a batch using ingredients lying around in his kitchen. 𝗕𝗏 was undaunted by its dubious origins. He gave some of the drugs to Christy, his man in the kitchen. 𝗕𝗏 never paid in cash, and we headed out to come up on the bogus powder. I couldn't feel anything and was getting annoyed that we'd been futzing around for the better part of an hour. I didn't do drugs, but 𝗕𝗏 had coaxed me into living a little. Mostly I wanted to sleep. If the stuff bothered to work and I could stay awake, maybe I'd catch Radio Luxembourg at home and the night wouldn't be a total loss. 𝗕𝗏 wanted to take more or wait longer, so we doubled up the dose and went to Club 56 to cool our heels. 𝗕𝗏 was stressing hard about the fizz. He was beginning to realize that we couldn't set foot in Bamboo again if the drugs were spazzed. Christy would be looking to settle up. At 56, we ran into 𝗕𝗏𝗏𝗍𝗍𝗀𝗏, an old friend from my axe-slinging days in 𝗔𝗵𝗏𝗏 and the Governors of the Bank. He was a roadie in both those bands. He was bartending at 56, but was looking to make some extra scratch on the side, so I asked him if he wanted to tag along on shows we were hoping to organize in the city. If the response was good, we could follow it up with a mini tour managed on weekends to places like Detroit, Buffalo, and even New York City if we could make it worth our while. We were planning the weekend tour not to work around any hectic work schedule per se, but because it meant 𝗕𝗏 didn't have to veer from his stomping grounds to go cop. This effectively meant that the final member of the Angels could also be a functional drug addict if they had the hard chops we were looking for. I was hoping for someone who only had chippies, because they would not overrule me in decisions about the itinerary to the next gig or pulling over the side of the road to get their rocks off. You only ever needed one technically gifted player in an outfit anyway. 𝗕𝗏 was the individual around whom everyone else coalesced, but seeing as I would be indulging in his nastier habits, I needed this final piece of the puzzle to be a ticking clock of a player. The plan was that we'd do 3 or 4 originals and plump up the rest of the set with sped-up blues covers, Earl Hooker, Boyd Gilmore, some freakbeat numbers for good measure. If a fastidious kind of roadie, perhaps a contradiction in terms, doesn't need the money real bad, that's where the line usually gets drawn. If they can stand to hear the same tunes day in and day out, whether you butcher them or not. Who else is in the band? Elpenor asked. 𝗕𝗏 and me. That's it so far. No manager, no extra cut. Why don't I tech and play drums for you? Save you some hassle, no extra cut. That's easy enough. I thought I had the next 6 months of my life lined up. Things went pear-shaped almost immediately. Elpenor never showed up to rehearsals. He stopped answering his phone outright. Mope and I went to his place in Little Tibet, where his sister told us he'd gone into hiding from his ex-girlfriend who was trying to get child support out of him. I hadn't even known he had children, but Elp was very cagey about his life before coming out. Mope wanted to find someone else, but I had become incredibly superstitious and was inclined to look at it as a disturbing omen worth complying with. If things don't progress smoothly for me from the outset, I always want to abandon artistic endeavors. Adversity later on is not a problem for me. The issues that rear up on the road have simple solutions. I blame a lifetime of shirking responsibility paired with ill luck at success for this unease. You become doctrinaire about the individual components you believe are needed for ventures to be favorable. Like I said, superstitious. Sorry. For a musical project to start up for me, everyone had to be on time for rehearsals, otherwise I'd threaten to walk. I wanted to reach a point in our teenage circle where I could command a certain amount of respect, and allowing tardiness was a surefire way to lose it. The idea was that I knew enough about my own worth than to faff around with a pair of jokers. Another requirement was that everyone among the group had to be keen on playing. No one was going to carry extra weight in the enthusiasm department, and there had to be a kind of companionability to the music itself as well. I'd asked the other minstrels their favorite musical acts. If there was not at least one overlapping selection, the deal was off. I got to be a little hard on this point because I broke this rule on one and only one occasion for a slinger named Brian 𝗕𝗏𝗯𝘄𝗏 when we formed 𝗕𝗏𝗃𝗃. Disastrous and the basis for a lot of hardship in my non-negotiable admissions criteria. I really am a slave to the deepest, obscurest musical compulsions. 𝗕𝗏𝗃𝗃 was a complete artistic failure, so I began to attribute disaster with non-compliance. Mope was a little pissed off over the whole thing, but I knew when to acknowledge the corn, as Elp used to say. Plus, I was fed up, not just from all the bad hits that never bothered to show up, but from trying to get groups running only to have them disintegrate a year later. The overhead was too hot. I managed to keep my head on straight the longest, so being the taskmaster usually fell squarely on my shoulders. Frankly, I was tired of doing all the babysitting. I was sick of skulking around in dives, never seeing the sun except at dawn, or taking turns waiting to fool around in the van like a 𝗕𝗎𝗮𝗻 on wheels. I was slowly beginning to realize that none of these bands would be remembered in the waterlogged annals of time, and that I probably couldn't hack it. I was pushing 20, for God's sakes. The big break would never come, even if I was living in hairline territory. Thank you.